Officer, Chief of Department Terrence Monahan Campbell has been released without bail, something that Mayor Bill de Blasio says makes him pretty unhappy.
It does not make sense to me. It really doesn't. First of all, Terry Monahan's a friend of mine. I have great respect for him, and he's out there every day trying to protect everyone in the city. And to see someone assault him, a chief of department, absolutely unacceptable.
Meanwhile, the surge in violence doesn't seem to be letting up. So far this week, the city has seen 51 shootings, with 70 people shot and 3 left dead. That's including a 1-year-old little boy who was shot in his stroller in Brooklyn. While the suspect in that case has been arrested, the NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea says the city needs a fully functioning court system, which has been partially shut down by coronavirus. He says the police have 2,000 open gun cases right now.
We need the price of carrying an illegal firearm in New York City to be felt. We don't necessarily need more gun arrests. We need the people that are caught to be prosecuted fully. And then we need the court systems open to get them off the street as quickly as possible.
And as we keep reporting on these cases, Shea also says that there just has to be consequences for people that have absolutely no regard for the law. Connell.
Laura Engel live in New York City. Thank you, Laura. To the aforementioned Terrence Monahan now, in his conversation with Neil yesterday on Your World, we talked a little bit about the effect all this is having on morale in the NYPD. Here it is.
And crime goes up double, triple digits. Homicide up better than 116% throughout all of this. How do you get a handle on that?
Listen, it's building up the morale of our cops. Understand it right now, the morale has probably been as low as it's been in a long time. It is important that we as an agency tell them how much we appreciate them, how much we know they're out there, the trouble that they're dealing with on the street. But more importantly, the silent majority that's out there, the community that is out there, that supports our police officers, that know the job they do.
To Joe Esposito now, who himself was the NYPD's chief of department for, I believe, about 13 years. And let's start, Joe, on that question of, with all that's in the news, we've had to talk of retirements going up and the rest, how police officers do their jobs effectively in this environment. As Terry Monahan's talking about, I assume morale has to be an issue, right?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to come on. But I don't know what's going to bring this department back. The morale has never, ever been lower. The tools have been taken away. That's the problem. We were living pretty good the first term of the mayor because we were living on the good work that was accomplished during the Giuliani and Bloomberg years. But now, the city council and from the governor on down, they have taken all the tools away from the NYPD to get the job done. So even if they came in and said, hey, do the job, I don't know how the PD could do it right now. The tools have been taken away. It's so bad that the state troopers have sent a letter to the governor saying, take us out of New York City. We don't want to be in New York City under these conditions. Westchester PD has just put an order out saying, don't go into New York City and do enforcement. It's out of control. The city is out of control.
I'm sure I could guess, but you said it a few times, the tools have been taken away. What are you referring to specifically when you say the tools are taken away?
Well, the day the administration changed, stop, question, and frisk was taken away. There's a place for stop, question, and frisk. Was it overused at times? Perhaps there was individual incidents when it was overused, but you've got to have that tool. It's virtually non-existent. Quality of life. What got us here under the Giuliani era was broken windows, quality of life. It's all been taken away. They decriminalized so many of the laws that it's impossible for an officer to do his job. It has empowered the bad guys. And the anarchists are taking full advantage of this. You cannot please the anarchists. Look at the mayor when he goes to an event now. He gets booed from the right side, he gets booed from the left side. He's trying to please the anarchists, and there is no pleasing the anarchists. They will take as much as they can get. There's lawlessness in the streets, and it's only going to get worse.
Is there a world, though, Joe, where you'd be open to some police reforms that could be discussed In other words, do you acknowledge that change has to happen, and maybe it could happen if people could have a conversation under a new mayor, as an example? Is that possible, or do you have to take a side? Do you have to be on one side or the other? Could we have a discussion about some necessary reforms, do you think?
No, you can have reform. Of course, there's always a place for reform. We do everything right in the NYPD? Of course not. But so you do the reform, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. As I talked about stop, question, and frisk. You know, we were doing a lot of numbers. Well, you know, the pendulum's got to swing back. We've got to find the right place for the amount of stop, question, and frisk. The right people, the right location. You've got to stay on top of the officers to make sure they're doing it the right way. You've got to respond to community complaints about quality of life enforcement. This was the worst 4th of July in recent history because there was no enforcement being done. Because the officers had taken the tools away. Look, there's some people saying this is a slowdown. I don't believe that for a minute. This is the fact that the officers saying, why should I bother? Why should I go and do any proactive policing when the courts are going to let them out? The fellows who assaulted Terry Monahan, a friend of mine, they're out with no bail. That poor officer who was put in a chokehold in the Bronx, they didn't even press the charges against him.
All right, Joe Esposito on the situation in New York. He's the former chief of department of the NYPD. Thank you, Joe. As we move on here, we'll take a quick break, and we're going to get back to some politics in a moment. President Trump's been struggling in the polls.